Hello, my name is Wayne. I'm brand new at this. This is my very first stream. I haven't figured out how to stream live, so this is just going to be me reacting to this video. I haven't watched it yet, but it should be a pretty good one. If you could please like, subscribe, and comment, I would appreciate it. If there's something you don't like, feel free. If you do like, feel free. Okay, thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Kim Iverson Show. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We do have a lot to cover. A lot went on today. Today was kind of a bigger news day, which quite frankly makes my job a little bit easier because then I've got a lot to talk about, and we do. So we're going to start off with the whistleblower who is alleging that the CIA paid off scientists to essentially forego the Wuhan lab leak theory for them.
I don't have any trouble at all believing that one. What about you guys?
To instead say that, no, the COVID virus came from a bat or an animal. Let's get into this story. So this is from the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, and they released this today. This is their press release, and then we're going to get into the letters. We're going to read those over. But they said staff on the Select Subcommittee of the Coronavirus Pandemic and Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence have heard testimony from a whistleblower alleging that the Central Intelligence Agency offered 6 analysts significant monetary incentives to change their position on COVID-19's origin. The whistleblower, who presents as a highly credible senior-level CIA officer, alleges that of the 7 members assigned to the CIA team tasked with analyzing COVID-19 origins, 6 officers concluded that the virus likely originated from a lab in Wuhan, China. The CIA then, however, allegedly offered financial incentives to 6 of the experts involved in the investigation to change their conclusion in favor of a zoonotic origin. Excuse me, I said that they were scientists, but these were 6 CIA team members, analysts who were looking over everything. I would imagine they had some sort of scientific background potentially, right? But they were apparently paid off or offered financial incentives in some way. So maybe that's your employer saying, we'll give you paid time off, or I don't know what the financial incentives could be, but I'm just kind of guessing. Would they say, here's a little extra vacation, paid time off?
Ain't that crazy? I wonder how many people worldwide these people killed. And then they get into these shots, and they've killed a bunch of people with them. I fell for it, took it. I only took one, then this news started coming out. I won't be taking no more. I watched an interview with a doctor on YouTube, and he said the strain that's going around now ain't really no worse than a bad cold. So if he's telling the truth, I don't think we have much to worry about anymore. But I'm not taking no more shots.
Off, here's a bonus. Not sure, but apparently they offered financial incentives to 6 of the experts out of the 7. If I were the 7th, I would have been like, actually, no, it was totally a lab leak, completely from Wuhan. Where's my payout? Where's my payout? They go on to say Chairman Wenstrup and Chairman Turner are requesting that all documents and communications related to the CIA's COVID-19 origins review be made immediately available to the committees. The chairman additionally requests the former CIA COO, Andrew McCridis, appear for a voluntary transcribed interview on September 26th. Any improper influence exerted by the CIA will be investigated to ensure accountability from the intelligence community. According to the whistleblower, and this is this is one part of the letter. We're actually going to get into it, so I'm going to skip this part right now. We're just going to actually read the letters themselves that the Select Committee sent out.
I think there was over 1 million people died just in the United States. I ain't no telling how many people died around the world. All for power, money, and greed.
This is to Director Burns, so the director of the CIA. It says the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic and the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, together the committees, have received new and concerning whistleblower testimony regarding the agency's investigation into the origins of COVID-19. A multi-decade, senior-level, current agency officer, so that's somebody, they're saying, very credible person. This is a multi-decade, they've been around for decades, senior-level, currently employed. So this isn't some angry person who was fired by the CIA and now they're retaliating. This is not some newbie who's coming around saying, oh, I want to earn some stripes or, and seem really important. Or this is a multi-decade senior level current agency officer has come forward to provide information to the committees regarding the agency's analysis into the origins of COVID-19. According to the whistleblower, the agency assigned 7 officers to a COVID discovery team. The team consisted of multidisciplinary and experienced officers with significant scientific expertise. So that's where I thought these are scientists to a degree. According to the whistleblower, at the end of its review, 6 of the 7 members of the team believed the intelligence and science were sufficient to make a low confidence assessment that COVID-19 originated from a laboratory in Wuhan, China. So they still believed it likely came from the lab, but they didn't have enough evidence. So when they say low confidence, they're saying we don't have like a smoking gun. We don't have tons of evidence of this, but all roads seem to be pointing to Wuhan, China lab leak, okay? And 6 of these analysts felt like, yeah, it's looking more likely that it's a lab leak than not a lab leak. The 7th member of the team, who also happened to be the most senior, was the lone officer to believe COVID-19 originated through zoonosis. So it's interesting that this is the most senior officer who believed that, no, it wasn't the lab.
Anybody know what zoonosis is? Please let me know. I have no idea.
It came from an animal, a bat or whatever. That's kind of interesting because since clearly leadership in the CIA wanted it to be zoonosis, the senior official who's analyzing it, then to come around and saying, yeah, it's zoonosis, may have known and may have been part of the fact that the higher ups wanted it to be zoonosis. So they might have been in on the, let's steer it in this direction. We don't want to be blaming this on Wuhan or a lab leak. The whistleblower further contends that to come to the eventual public determination of uncertainty, the other 6 members were given a significant monetary incentive to change their position. So that a raise, a bonus, a bunch of paid vacation or time off, not sure. These allegations from a seemingly credible source requires the committees to conduct further oversight of how the CIA handled its internal investigation into the origins of COVID-19. To assist the committees with their investigations, we request the following documents and information as soon as possible, but no later than September 26th. All documents and communications regarding the establishment of all iterations of the COVID discovery team, all documents and communications between or among the members of all iterations of the COVID discovery team regarding the origins of COVID-19, all documents and communications between or among members of all iterations of the COVID discovery team and other employees or contractors of the agency regarding the origins of COVID-19. And they say all documents and communications between or among members of all iterations of the COVID discovery team and employees or contractors of other federal government agencies, so they want it from everybody, including but not limited to the U.S. Department of State, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, to include the NIH and the NIAID. And
I really wish the Republicans would get off their backside and investigate all this stuff. I think they're starting to. They're starting to investigate the Biden Congress. But, man, the Republican, did I say Democrats? I meant the Republicans get off their butts. The Democrats play so dirty, and Republicans just, I heard somebody say, turn the other cheek. It's crazy. They should be fighting back.
And the U.S. Department of Energy regarding the origins of COVID-19, and all documents and communications regarding the pay history to include the awarding of any type of financial or performance-based incentive financial bonus to members of all iterations of the COVID discovery team. It's important to note that though they are demanding all of these things, the CIA is not legally obligated to give it to them. so they're likely not going to. They can just take this letter and burn it, and that's maybe what they're going to do. But this committee will continue to then pursue and then could actually seek out legal means in order to get this sort of information. But the American people can be angry and say, well, you work for us, our tax dollars fund you, even though many of us don't think you should be funded anymore, CIA. And so it is, we could pressure them. We could put a lot of, there could be, if the mainstream media would get on board and actually cover this, there could be a lot of public pressure for them to turn over the information. There could maybe be even FISA requests. I mean, not really sure what all the legal mechanisms could be to actually gain this information, but my guess is the CIA attorneys are looking over these demand letters that they often get from various different subcommittees and determining what type of legal mechanism the subcommittee would have beyond this, beyond just a demand letter, that they would then ultimately end up having to comply with. And they might kind of weigh the pros and cons and the odds and decide, do we want to just turn over the information? Do we want to hold on to the information? If they think the information's benign that they have, they'll likely just turn it over and they'll say, see, there's nothing here, nothing to see here. But if they think that the information is damning, then my guess is they would hold on and not comply to this letter and then figure out ways to continue to not comply and to fight the demands of this subcommittee. Goes on to say the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic is authorized to investigate the origins of the coronavirus pandemic, including but not limited to the federal government's funding of gain-of-function research and the executive branch policies, deliberations, decisions, activities, and internal and external communications related to the coronavirus pandemic. And so actually it says here, further, House Rule 11, Clause 2 grants committees of the House of Representatives with the authority to require, by subpoena or otherwise, the attendance and testimony of such witnesses and the production of such books, records, correspondence, memoranda, papers, and documents as it considers necessary. Should the required information not be produced in an expeditious and satisfactory manner, you should expect the committee or committees to use its additional tools and authorities to satisfy our legislative and oversight requirements. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. So again, this is just a demand letter. It's not legally binding, but they're saying here at the end, by the way, we do have the ability to subpoena, so don't make us use it. But if you do, we will. So that is the letter that they've sent off to the director of the CIA, William Burns. Now, they also sent another letter to Andrea Makritis. He's the former COO of the Central Intelligence Agency. They say, Dear Mr. Makritis, the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic and the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence have received new and concerning whistleblower testimony regarding the Central Intelligence Agency's investigation into the origins of COVID-19. Specifically, the whistleblower pointed the committees to a CIA-led COVID discovery team in which you played a central role in its formation and eventual conclusion that the CIA was unable to determine the origins of COVID-19. So they're blaming it on this one individual, and they're saying you were the one, apparently according to this to the whistleblower, this particular individual was very much in charge of this committee that was put together inside the CIA and essentially paid them off. He was the one who paid them off. So that's why they want to hear from the COO who paid off these CIA agents. They say, or analysts, they say these allegations from a seemingly credible source require the committee to conduct further oversight of how the CIA handled its internal investigation into the origins of COVID-19. To assist the committees with their investigations, we request you participate in a voluntary transcribed interview on September 26th. So they're inviting him to an interview on September 26th. They're not subpoenaing him or forcing him to show up, but they're asking at this point. But that could change. The Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic is authorized to investigate the origins of the coronavirus pandemic. And they go on to say, they're allowed to be doing this investigation. And they also they also have subpoena power. They go on to say the same thing. We have subpoena power, so should we need to use it, we will. And they say, thank you for your attention to this important matter. So they want to hear from him directly. So they want a bunch of information from the director of the CIA. They want him to produce a bunch of documents and correspondence. And from the former COO of the CIA, they want to hear from him directly. And this is all, look, the CIA is kind of behind on the times when it came to the lab leak theory. There were
Yeah.
plenty of other agencies that came forward saying, well, maybe we did have the Department of Energy. Strangely enough, that was the department that came out saying we think that it's probably a lab leak. The FBI even started saying that, but the CIA kind of continued to hold on to the zoonotic narrative. The question though is why? Why would the CIA want to cover this up? What would be in their interest in particular? You could understand maybe NIH or NIAID, Anthony Fauci. You could see maybe the scientists wanting to cover it up because they're thinking, oh crap, we were involved in this. There's a lot of other countries involved. A lot of us were participating in this lab. We were sending scientists to that lab. We were funding the lab. And we knew exactly what they were doing. We knew they were doing gain of function research. Whether they were doing it for just scientific reasons, big pharma reasons, so they could have been doing this type of gain of function research for maybe just curiosity, how do viruses function? This is what we think in our minds why scientists do a lot of the things they do, is to find out more about how things work so that, who knows what comes from it. So that could be one reason why they did that. I don't think any of us really believe that was their motivation, was just science, in the name of science. The second reason why they could do it is big pharma wants to make more drugs, more vaccines, more medicines, right? And so they're testing and doing things with these viruses in order to come up with drugs or cures or, some sort of big pharma money-making scheme. Obviously, it could also be biological weapons, looking at ways to use viruses to go after countries. That, to me, is a little bit less likely in this situation, only because this was an international lab with many countries participating. I definitely have heard this theory. It's just harder for me to believe that China and the United States and Australia, all of these countries that are at odds with one another would get together and actually do gain of function research with the intent to use it as a biological weapon. My guess is they're all doing this now, each individual country could say they're doing it for one reason, but really be doing it for another. Of course, everybody could hide their agenda. So it's possible that a country's doing it because they're trying to use or make a biological weapon, and they're just not telling anybody else, like their sinister secret reason as to why they're participating in the international research. So that's possible, sure. Anything's possible. But this lab is one that, we send these scientists away out of the United States because we've got a lot of rules and regulations and safety mechanisms. Other countries do not. So they go and they send them off to China, where they're more liberal with their ability to test and mutate and play around with things. They get away with it there. And that's where they sent them. And a lot of people are implicit in this because even we may have laws. I mean, this is what we deal with when it comes to some of our foreign policy. We say, well, we're not allowed to do this XYZ thing, but we can go with one of our allies where it's not in their constitution or it's not part of their laws to prevent them from spying on citizens or...
That's pathetic. People they just don't care. It's crazy.
bombing or doing the honey pot type or traps or whatever it might be, torture, right? We offshore it in order to get away with it. So one of the first things is that I could see the scientists wanting to hide all of this in an effort to cover up the fact that they were involved. But why would the CIA want to cover this up? What would be the reason for them saying, no, it's not the lab, it was zoonotic, even though you've got 6 analysts sitting there saying, I think it was the lab. Pretty sure it was the lab. And their boss comes around and says, no, change your story. We'll give you a bunch of money. It's zoonotic. Just change it to zoonotic. The other thing that's really questionable is why all 6 of them would do that. How did they present the information to these 6 analysts to get them to go along with it? I would imagine at least 1 or 2 of them would say, no, this is against my principles. I believe that it came from the lab and there's nothing you can't pay me off. So that's also an interesting question there, which makes me wonder about the truthfulness of the story in general. There's a lot of roads we could go down with this, and I think it's really important to explore them all. But is one of the reasonings behind this coming out now, and that's another thing we have to ask, why now? Why is this coming out now? are they trying to go after China? Is this just a setup to, okay, yeah, all these CIA analysts, everybody's in agreement, this came from China. Now it's politically, it's beneficial for us to be pointing the finger at China, pivoting all of our war resources toward China, ruffling feathers and really trying to look like we're going to start World War III with China. Maybe they're using it for that reason. So we have to kind of think about the why. And that is what, I would love to hear from you what you think the why is. Why would the CIA cover this up originally? Or why is this story coming out? Do you believe this story? Do you think that this whistleblower is telling the truth? Because remember, this whistleblower is a current operative at the CIA, right? So is that current agent at the CIA planting a story, putting this intelligence, the subcommittee on a different path, throwing the American people off, or doing it with an agenda? And these are all, I think, very legitimate questions that we just don't really have the answers to. As we gain more information, we can start to really maybe put things together. And usually these types of things don't come together for us until far in the future. And then we say, remember that story? And that's kind of what led us down this path, which then led us to this, which now led us to war, right? Then we'll kind of have that clear picture later on in the future. But right now, this is really murky. This is really unclear. And I think there's a lot of reason to be very suspicious of this story in general, simply because of the players involved, the CIA. And whenever you involve the CIA, you've got to be very suspicious. Are they telling you the truth? Is there a secret agenda? What's going on here? But it's interesting. And I know a lot of people, many people who believe this was definitely a lab leak, that all roads point to lab leak. But I say that very cautiously. I do not want to start a war with China. I'm not looking to blame this or wanting, but
Do you guys think that the White House would start a war with China over the virus? I think when and if the war starts, it'll be over Taiwan myself. I don't think the people in power in China or America care about the virus killing all these people. I just really don't. I think we're probably headed to war with China, but I think it'll be over Taiwan because we get our computer chips from there. It amazes me that they can't start making them in the United States, but I guess they don't want to.
Well, look, wherever the story goes, the story goes. If it ends up being China's sinister plot and it's their fault, then that is. And we're here to tell the truth, and that's all we can do. But my hope is that's not the actual situation, although I do think there would be a lot of warmongers who are very hot for that option, salivating over the idea that we could just blame this on China. This was a sinister plot, and that'll rally up more people to want to go to war with China. We always have to be on the lookout for that. So we always have to think, is this narrative being used to point us in a direction the warmongers want us to go in, or are they telling us the truth? Sometimes the truth could lead to war, but maybe more measured minds and cooler temperatures could say, yeah, but they didn't mean to do it. It wasn't meant to be an act of war, and so maybe we should kind of chill out on that. But a lot of things to look at when it comes to the lab leak theory. I think many of us believe that most of the evidence seems to point to the lab leak. But then does that translate to, then we must go to war with China? And I think a lot of us feel like, hope not, definitely hope not. That maybe there was a lot of people involved, like the United States, like Peter Daszak from EcoHealth Alliance, like Anthony Fauci, NIH, NIAID, right? A lot of players involved. And scientists doing things that scientists should not be doing, and they're offshoring it, similar to torture. Similar to how the military will just go and put a torture program somewhere offshore, because that's where they can get away with it. So they think. And that's what's going on with this gain-of-function research, and we should all be very aware of it, which we are now. And many of us are hoping that they stop this very reckless, dangerous type of experimentation that clearly unleashed one of the worst things that many of us have ever experienced in our lifetime, which was the pandemic, which seems to still be going. It definitely still seems to be going because, by the way, the FDA just came out today with news, or this was actually, I think, released late yesterday, that there's a new COVID vaccine. So we've talked about on this show that there was the COVID vaccine, the COVID booster that they had released for the fall, but the booster was for the Omicron variant that was really strong in January. And so they were going to give everybody this Omicron booster, and it was like, that's not the variant that's actually circulating around anymore. So you're going to give people an antiquated, outdated booster this fall. Haven't even released it yet. Well, the FDA now says that they have actually updated the actual vaccine itself. So this is not the booster. This is the vaccine itself, but they're saying everyone can get this vaccine.
Another untested vaccine. You guys gonna take it? I'm not.
Vaccine, and it is for the latest variant that is circulating around right now. So they say that the Food and Drug Administration took action approving and authorizing for emergency use. So this means it cannot be mandated. For emergency use, updated COVID-19 vaccines formulated to more closely target currently circulating variants and to provide better protection against serious consequences of COVID-19, including hospitalization and death. Today's actions relate to updated mRNA vaccines for 2023-2024 manufactured by Moderna and Pfizer, consistent with the totality of the evidence and input from the FDA's expert advisors. These vaccines have been updated to include a monovalent, so that's a single compound that corresponds to the Omicron variant XBB.1.5, which is the one that's circulating now. So they're saying that what you need to know, individuals 5 years of age and older, regardless of previous vaccination, are eligible to receive a single dose of an updated mRNA COVID-19 vaccine at least 2 months since the last dose of any COVID-19 vaccine. So this is not a booster. So look, it's confusing. I don't even know what a booster is in comparison to the actual 2-dose regimen that they started people off with, because they said, okay, 2 doses of Pfizer and then a booster. Oh, and then another booster. And then they had the bivalent booster. And then they're having this bivalent updated booster this fall. And now they come out and they say, actually, we got a new vaccine entirely. And it's just 1 dose. So I'm really confused. If I'm confused, I'm sure a lot of the nurses that are going to be giving this vaccine are going to be, I mean, you could guarantee there's going to be some confusion on this. And a lot of people are going to be showing up saying, I've had all 5 doses. Can I have this one too? And it's unclear. Do they get it? Do they not get it? Are they supposed to be getting this other booster instead that's coming out in the fall that includes the original? The booster includes the original virus, which is really antiquated. I mean, we're how many variants past the original? I don't even know. It includes the original plus the last 2 Omicron variants. So that is what the booster that is arriving this fall has. But then there's this new vaccine now that's just a monovalent that it's only made for the current singular virus. That's the variant that's going around now. They're saying individuals 6 months through 4 years of age who have previously been vaccinated against COVID-19 are eligible to receive 1 or 2 doses of an updated mRNA COVID-19 vaccine. Timing and number of doses to administer depends on the previous COVID-19 vaccine received. So if you've never been vaccinated, it looks like they're still going to give you 2 of these. If you've been vaccinated, then I guess you only need 1 of these. Unvaccinated individuals 6 months through 4 years of age are eligible to receive, so scratch what I just said. Because if you're unvaccinated, no, you're going to get 3 doses. Not 1, not 2, but 3 doses of the updated authorized Pfizer COVID vaccine, or 2 doses of the updated and authorized Moderna vaccine. So I don't know who gets 2 doses, because they're saying, okay, you can get 1 dose. I don't know who gets 2 doses, because apparently if you're unvaccinated, you're getting 3 doses. So yeah, they're saying that individuals who receive an updated mRNA COVID-19 vaccine may experience similar side effects as those reported by individuals who previously received mRNA COVID-19 vaccines as described in the respective prescribing information or fact sheet. So side effects are the same. I think they would have improved it. So they're saying the updated mRNA vaccines are each approved for individuals 12 years of age and older and are authorized under emergency use for individuals 6 months through 11. Oh, I'm sorry. So is that what they're saying? This is so I swear the FDA writes these things in order to confuse us so that we can't really fully understand, because they said at the let me just go back to the top of this so we can really understand this together. It says the U.S. Food and Drug Administration took action approving and authorizing for emergency use. Oh, it's both. I thought this was only for emergency use, so they couldn't mandate it. I take that back, guys. Scratch that too. Apparently, for anybody over the age of 12, it's approved. It's Corminity. And anybody 6 months through 11 years of age, it's just for emergency use. So they can't mandate it for children under 11 years of age. But I guess because it's been approved, they could mandate it for anybody over the age of 12. So there you go. That's what's going on now with the additional new vaccine that they're rolling out. They've updated it, and that's what you need to know. So be on the lookout for that as they ramp up this fall. You know, COVID's back. People are wearing masks again. We're seeing these more vaccines, more boosters, a lot of stuff going on there. So keep an eye out, everybody. Keep an eye out. I'm here to help you stay informed every step of the way. All right, guys, let me tell you about Field of Greens. This is how you can stay healthy. If you want to be healthy, you got to get all of your fruits and vegetables into your diet. This is going to help you lower your cholesterol. It's going to help you with heart disease. It's going to help you with, you know, all the things that
this a little bit.
is really going to help you on just your business.
Taken together, these allegations paint a picture.
Better, more energetic. You'll sleep better. You're going to get all. Go to fieldofgreens.com and use the promo code Kim at checkout. They've got a lot of great products. They've got many flavors of the Field of Greens. Check it all out. And when you go to your cart, put that promo code Kim in at checkout and get 15% off your first order. Again, it's fieldofgreens.com, and you will get 15% off your first order by using the promo code Kim. All right. More news. Impeachment of Joe Biden. There's an inquiry that has been now launched by Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. Today he announced this. Let's go ahead and watch him make the announcement that he's planning on potentially, you know, this could lead to an impeachment. I'll explain what the inquiry is, but this could lead to the impeachment of Joe Biden. Here it is.
Taken together, these allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption. Now, here's what we know so far. Through our investigations, we have found that President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business dealings. Eyewitnesses have testified that the president joined on multiple phone calls and had multiple interactions. Dinners resulted in cars and millions of dollars into his son's and his son's business partners. We know that bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies. The Treasury Department alone has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family and other business associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks. Even a trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe to the Biden family. Biden used his official office to coordinate with Hunter Biden's business partners about Hunter's role in Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company. Finally, despite these serious allegations, it appears that the president's family has been offered special treatment by Biden's own administration. Treatment that not otherwise would have received if they were not related to the president. These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption. And they warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives. That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. This logical next step will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public. It's exactly what we want to know, the answers. I believe the president would want to answer these questions and allegations as well. This effort will be led by Chairman James Comer at the Committee on Oversight, in coordination with Chairman Jim Jordan for Judiciary Committee and Chairman Jason Smith on Ways and Means. Now, I do not make this decision lightly. And regardless of your party or who you voted for, These facts should concern all Americans.
Yes, they
Okay, so this is
should.
very interesting that he's got all of these various committees that are going to be going forward with this impeachment inquiry. So, the order of operations when it comes to this and how this ends up in an
I'd say it's about time, wouldn't you?
impeachment of Joe Biden, which I believe it will. I do believe that this will lead to the impeachment of Joe Biden. Now, will Joe Biden actually be removed from office in the impeachment? No. This will end up the same way it did for Bill Clinton and the same way it did for Trump both times. It's going to be the same, but it's still just the principle of the matter and going through this with Joe Biden. So, a simple majority. So the committee does the investigation. In this case,
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. These are pretty serious charges. All the charges on Trump were fake, and Bill Clinton, I think his was lying about Monica Lewinsky. But this is some pretty serious stuff with the Bidens.
it looks like he's got 3 different committees that are going to be involved in this investigation. Let me just go ahead and look back at his letter. He also released, so not only did he do a press conference today, but Speaker Kevin McCarthy also released a letter saying, "Dear colleagues, earlier today I directed our House committees to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. I did not reach this decision lightly. However,
Yes!
this logical next step will allow our committees to gather all the facts and provide answers for the American people. This effort will be led by Chairman James Comer of the Oversight and Accountability Committee, in coordination with Chairman Jim Jordan of the Judiciary Committee and Chairman Jason Smith of the Ways and Means Committee." So it could be that the 3 of them are forming a special committee and that the 3 of them are leading this, or it could be that these 3 committees are actually involved in the impeachment inquiry. So what they'll do is they'll do an investigation. They'll look over all the information that they have. They'll investigate more, and then they'll vote. And a simple majority will then they'll draft up. So after they do the investigation, they draft up these articles of impeachment. Then they do a simple vote, and they decide to, for each article of impeachment, and then that gets sent to the full House. And then the House votes on these articles of impeachment, and it just, again, is a simple majority. And which right now is run by Republicans. There's a majority of Republicans in the House. So if all Republicans are in agreement, which I believe they all will be in agreement on this, then Joe Biden will be then impeached. He'll then have to go to the hearing. The Senate then gets the impeachment proceedings, and the Senate has to hold the hearings, as we saw twice recently with Donald Trump. So this likely is going to happen. I mean, now this was kind of the big chatter for a long time, was whether or not Joe Biden was actually going to be impeached, whether or not Kevin McCarthy was going to do it. There were a lot of people in the House who were, Kevin McCarthy barely became Speaker of the House. He was kind of skating by, and it was really tough for him actually to get into that position. He had to do a lot of compromising. And one of those things was one of the questions that many of the members had was whether or not Kevin McCarthy would go forward with an impeachment of Joe Biden if necessary. And now we've learned that answer today, that yes, the answer, yes, he is going to go forward with this. So many members can call for a special inquiry, an impeachment inquiry, but it's up to the Speaker of the House to actually say, okay, green light, we're going to go forward with this. And that is what happened today. So it's pretty significant. And it will lead likely to Joe Biden ending up in the Senate in the same way. And, I could just see it now, him walking in all smiley, every Democrat, every liberal, all the mainstream news. You've got, back when it was Trump, you had Washington Post, New York Times, every major media outlet and all of the liberal outlets saying, oh, yes, he's a bad man. This is terrible. He's a crook. He's a criminal.
Yeah.
This time around, with Joe Biden, they're going to say this is a farce, this is a joke, this is just Republicans posturing, there's no there. And in reality, what they're accusing him of are pretty significant crimes. Again, going back to the letter that Kevin McCarthy released today, he said, eyewitness testimony revealed that the president joined multiple phone calls and had various interactions with his son's business partners. For example, Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's business partner, testified that Joe Biden spoke or met with Hunter Biden's business associates around 20 times. And then after meeting with President Biden, foreign nationals sent Hunter Biden millions of dollars and bought him a Porsche. Bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to Biden family members and associates through numerous shell companies. The Treasury Department has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family and their business associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks. A trusted FBI informant provided information about alleged bribes to the Biden family. There's also evidence that Biden used his official office to coordinate with Hunter Biden's business partner about Hunter's role in Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company. Says finally, despite these serious allegations, it appears that the president's family has been afforded special treatments by Biden's own administration, treatment they would not otherwise have received if they were not related to the president. For example, in July, there was the sweetheart plea deal that President Biden's Department of Justice tried to sneak past the public. Had a federal judge not rejected the deal, it would have gone through unnoticed. So, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of potential corruption of somebody using their government position, their elected government position, and their government salary to somehow turn themselves and their family into millionaires. Doesn't that raise eyebrows? That should. It absolutely should. In fact, Scott Perry, Representative Scott Perry, I'm going to put it nicely to a reporter, so let's go ahead and watch that.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I just ask, what actual evidence do you have as opposed to allegations to show to the American public that would merit an actual impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden and prove that today isn't just about some of you...
Oh, I don't know.
McCarthy for the sake of enacting political revenge.
This isn't about political revenge. We have the bank accounts. We can see, ma'am, you can see that the homes that the Bidens own can't be afforded on a congressional or Senate salary. You also understand that it's not normal for family members to receive millions of dollars from overseas interests. Those things aren't normal. That's not normal to have 20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering, if not influence peddling itself. And we also have the president, the vice president at the time, on record saying that the prosecutor was fired. Well, son of a bitch, the prosecutor was fired, right? Because the prosecutor was going after the company that his son was working on. That's what we have. If you can't see that, if you are that blunt, look, I'll turn it over to the attorneys.
People can't see that. They think it's political revenge.
It's because you don't report on it.
You're not,
We're here reporting on it today.
That's right.
I'm not sure how you know what the American people think, but here's what they might wonder.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's the kind of treatment that they're going to be getting. This reporter there saying this is just basically this is political revenge. When the evidence is overwhelming. Representative Scott Perry is completely right. Who can afford the homes that Biden has on a congressional salary, on a senator's salary, even on a vice president's salary? Why is this family making $20 million in pay? His family, Hunter Biden, who is somebody who has not been very successful in his entire career, and he's struggled quite publicly with drug addiction. How could somebody like that be making millions of dollars without any real skill set, except for the fact that he is connected to his connected father? So there's I think there's a lot there that should be investigated, and I think most Americans actually see that. But what's interesting is the liberal media's attempt to gaslight. You've got, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post. For one, many of them are not even covering this. They're not planning to cover it. They're going to look at the impeachment the same way they did the Hunter Biden laptop story, where they're going to say, we're not going to be covering fake news on our network, so we're not going to even entertain the impeachment of a sitting U.S. president. They're likely to just push that aside, brush that aside, and ignore it. And that's a farce as well and should be investigated. The liberal news media, the establishment news media should be completely investigated. Let's actually look at some more reactions that have happened here. Chuck Schumer, he of course had a reaction to today's announcement. Here he is.
I think the impeachment inquiry is absurd. The American people want us to do something that will make their lives better, not go off on these chases and witch hunts. The bottom line is, as we have said, you can only accomplish keeping the government open in a bipartisan way.
Okay, and here's John Fetterman. He's, he was the guy that was, he was elected to the Senate wearing a hoodie, right? So he's real of the people, which I like that about him, actually. I think that's a good thing, but he has had some health issues. I know people criticize that, but whatever. Let's just watch his reaction to this.
Ask you about this news that Speaker McCarthy has formally launched an impeachment, or has said he's going to.
Oh my God, really? Oh my gosh, it's devastating. Ooh,
don't do it. Please don't do it. Oh no, oh no.
I know a lot of people. Look, a lot of people don't like John Fetterman because they feel like he's this. I mean, you saw how he was. He doesn't act like a sitting senator of the United States. He's real rough around the edges. He's definitely suffered from some health issues, and so there was a lot of questions on whether or not whether or not he was mentally or physically capable of being in the Senate. Although we have Dianne Feinstein and Mitch McConnell as well and others. So I don't know. Clearly, having all your mental faculties is not actually a requirement for anybody in Congress or even President of the United States. In fact, it's not a national security risk at all, right? To all these people with top secret information with dementia and not knowing where the hell they are half the time. But John Fetterman, I actually appreciate that he is not polished. I actually like that about him, and I wish that we saw more people like that. And of course, I wish that many of those people that were more unpolished were people that, I mean, even Marjorie Taylor Greene, I also like her for that same reason. It's not, I don't agree with her a lot of times. I don't agree with John Fetterman a lot of times, but I like that we're seeing these unpolished people in politics. I just think it's more real than, the toothy, grinning politician who's fake. I don't want fake.
Right.
I like real. That's just me. So this is what's happening with the impeachment. We're likely going to see the sitting president of the United States impeached in the Senate. And the question is who's going to cover it. I think that's, besides Fox News, Newsmax, OANN, and of course independent media like myself, who else is going to cover this? Because I don't think it's going to be the liberal news media.
No, the libs won't cover it. So what do you guys think about this one? Should the big guy be impeached? And when they go through with the impeachment, do you think they're going to actually throw him out of office? Part of me hopes so, but then the other part of me realizes if he goes, Kamala comes in, and that could be even a bigger disaster.
Covering it at all. All right, let's move on with the show. We do just have quite a bit more to cover, and we're running out of time. Let's talk about Starlink Gate. So Elon Musk is under fire, hot water, for apparently not being willing to start World War III with Russia, to not allow things to escalate to nuclear conflict. There's a lot of Democrats in particular who are pointing the finger at Elon Musk very angrily, calling for an investigation into Elon Musk, really wanting the government to go after him. This is where it all began. It all began in a new book that actually dropped today. Walter Isaacson is a biographer. He's a very well-known biographer. He's written one for Steve Jobs and others. And he wrote this book that released today, Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson. And in the book, there was an excerpt that was released early. And the excerpt reads, so I'm going to read this one to you so you can hear for yourself. Throughout the evening and into the night, he personally took charge of the situation, allowing the use of Starlink for the attack, he concluded, could be a disaster for the world. So he secretly told his engineers to turn off coverage within 100 kilometers of the Crimean coast. As a result, when the Ukrainian drone subs got near the Russian fleet in Sevastopol, they lost connectivity and washed ashore harmlessly. When the Ukrainian military noticed that Starlink was disabled in and around Crimea, Musk got frantic calls and texts asking him to turn the coverage back on. Fedorov, the deputy prime minister who had originally enlisted his help, secretly shared with him the details of how the drone subs were crucial to their fight for freedom. Quote, "We made the sea drones ourselves. They can destroy any cruiser or submarine," he texted using an encrypted app. "I did not share this information with anyone. I just want you, the person who is changing the world through technology, to know this." It goes on to say, Musk replied that the design of the drones was impressive, but he refused to turn the coverage for Crimea back on, arguing the Ukraine is now going too far in inviting strategic defeat. He discussed the situation with President Biden's National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, explaining to them that he did not wish Starlink to be used for offensive purposes. He also called the Russian ambassador to assure him that Starlink was being used for defensive purposes only. If the Ukrainian attacks had succeeded in sinking the Russian fleet, it would have been like a mini Pearl Harbor and led to a major escalation, Musk says. We did not want to be part of that.
I don't really blame him. I wouldn't want to have anything to do with something like that either. War is bad. And that's a simplistic view, but it's terrible. It's really bad. Let me know what you think about this. I keep asking you guys to let me know because your opinion matters, and I would like to hear from some of you. Okay.
So this excerpt released with Elon Musk being allegedly unwilling to turn on Starlink, which is the internet service that really has been helping Ukraine throughout the war. Elon Musk has donated about $100 million worth of Starlink to Ukraine to help them in their defense against Russia. But according to this excerpt, he did not want to be a part of any offensive attack on Russian soil, which Russia, no matter wherever you fall in the idea of who belongs where Crimea, who owns Crimea or who the people of Crimea belong to or whatever.
Sorry about the interruptions. My camera's acting up, it seems like.
Russia believes Crimea to be Russia. And so, and Russia's been there for quite some time now, and an attack on Crimea is an attack on Russia. Elon Musk knew this, and he would not allow his Starlinks to be used for that attack. This is now, after this came out, really predominantly warmonger-loving Democrats came out in droves, eviscerating Elon Musk, essentially calling him a treasonous traitor to the country for not backing our ally and helping them attack Russia. Walter Isaacson, however, clarified and came back in a tweet and said this: to clarify on the Starlink issue, the Ukrainians thought coverage was enabled all the way to Crimea, but it was not. They asked Musk to enable it for their drone sub-attack on the Russian fleet. Musk did not enable it because he thought, probably correctly, that it would cause a major war. So it wasn't that Starlink was there and Elon Musk turned it off. That is what the Ukrainians believed. They believed Elon had turned it off, that they had coverage. And in reality, there was not ever coverage in that area since the sanctions against Russia. Elon had turned off Starlink in that zone. But here's Anthony Blinken, surprisingly, actually almost defending Elon Musk. Now, this is where things get really interesting because the U.S. government, you think, a lot of us believe they're just aching for war with Russia, but at the same time, they're not really willing to take that extra step to provoke Russia to a nuclear war and to put us into an actual hot war with Russia. They really like this proxy war thing we got going on where we're funding Ukraine. The weapons manufacturers, they love it. They're making gobs and gobs of money off of producing weapons and having them being shipped over to, well, really, we're giving weapons that we already have to Ukraine, and then weapons manufacturers have to replenish the U.S. military. So everybody's making a lot of money on this, and they seem to really be enjoying that without having to sacrifice any U.S. bodies. We've even seen Mitt Romney saying how great this was, that, look at, Ukraine is doing all the fighting. We're not losing anybody, so this is the best war investment we've ever made. So there's a lot of people who do not want to change that. A lot of the warmongers don't want to, and this is actually evidence of that. Anthony Blinken on Jake Tapper's show on CNN, where Jake Tapper is really wanting the U.S. government to go after Elon Musk for how dare he stop a Ukrainian attack on Russia. Watch this.
So SpaceX CEO Elon Musk has recently confirmed a report that's in Walter Isaacson's new biography of Musk that last year Musk blocked access to his Starlink satellite network in Crimea in order to disrupt a major Ukrainian attack on the Russian Navy there. In other words, Musk effectively sabotaged a military operation by Ukraine, a U.S. ally, against Russia, an aggressor country that invaded a U.S. ally. Should there be repercussions for that?
Jake, I can't speak to a specific episode. Here's what I can tell you. Starlink has been a vital tool for the Ukrainians to be able to communicate with each other, and particularly for the military to communicate in their effort to defend all of Ukraine's territory. It remains so, and I would expect it to continue to be critical to their efforts. So what we would hope and expect is that that technology will remain fully available to the Ukrainians. It is vital to what they're doing.
I don't know that you can't speak to it. You won't speak to it. Musk says he was reportedly afraid that Russia would retaliate with nuclear weapons. Musk says that's based on his private discussions he had with senior Russian officials. Are you concerned that Musk is apparently conducting his own diplomatic outreach to the Russian government.
Oh,
Really,
come on.
none of this concerns you?
Jake, I can't speak to conversations that may or may not have happened. I don't know. I'm focused on the fact that the technology itself, Starlink, has been really important to the Ukrainians. It remains so. And it should continue to be part of what they're able to call on to be able to communicate with themselves, and again, to have the military be able to communicate. Throughout this Russian aggression, we ourselves have always had to factor in what Russia may do in response to any given thing that we or others do or the Ukrainians do, and we have. But what's so critical now is that Ukraine has had real success over the past year. I was just in Ukraine, as you know. The last time I was there was almost exactly a year ago. In that year, from the last time I was there till this week, the Ukrainians have retaken more than 50% of the territory seized by Russia since February of 2022. They're now engaged in a critical counteroffensive. And we're doing everything we can to maximize our support for them, along with many other countries, so that they can be successful. Starlink is an important part of their success, and as I said, we expect that it will continue to be so.
It sounds like Starlink's so important the U.S. government doesn't want to risk offending a capricious billionaire who did some things that I think in another situation the U.S. government might want to say something about. But let's move on.
Okay. Interesting. Jake Tapper really wanting the U.S. government to do something about that Elon Musk because he was preventing Ukraine from attacking Russia directly, which, by the way, what Antony Blinken was saying is that we even have to take into consideration our own actions and how that might result, what Ukraine might do. That has been one of the reasons why the U.S. has been hesitant to give Ukraine certain weapons, because they're afraid, okay, they're going to attack Russia with it. And that is actually, throughout the war, the U.S. has been more measured on not giving Ukraine the tools to attack Russia directly. And that is something that the U.S. has even said to Ukraine, you can't use our weapons to attack Russia. That is probably why the Ukrainians said to Elon Musk, we made these drones. These are ours. Don't worry, they're not U.S. weapons, because they know that that's against the rules for the U.S. We do not want them attacking Russia. But Jake Tapper there sounds like he's salivating at the option of why can't Ukraine just be attacking Russia whenever they want, even with U.S. weapons, even with U.S. companies' technology, which would be the same, no different. Using Starlink to attack Russia would be no different than using Lockheed Martin missiles to attack Russia, which is something the U.S. government has explicitly said, we do not want you doing. At this point, that might be changing. We're going to get into that. Let's hear what Rachel Maddow has to say about Elon Musk and his defiance to attack Russia. Here she is.
Doing with them. The Walter Isaacson, much hyped biography of Elon Musk that comes out tomorrow includes a story about the Ukrainian military planning to launch an attack on Russian Navy ships in port in Crimea. And per Mr. Isaacson's account, Elon Musk personally took action to make sure the Ukrainian military would not be able to do that. Mr. Musk making sure that the Ukrainian military could not use his Starlink satellite internet network, which is what Ukraine uses for connectivity on the battlefield, to advance that operation. He got personally involved to make sure Ukraine had its hands tied in battle. It's reported in Mr. Isaacson's biography. It was first reported by The Economist in October. Then last month, in The New Yorker, reporter Ronan Farrow reported more detail about how Elon Musk has been stopping Ukrainian forces from using this crucial supply line, from using Starlink in Kherson and Zaporizhia and Kharkiv and Donetsk and Luhansk. Musk has been geofencing all of those places in Ukraine, fencing those places off from the Starlink satellite network, deliberately to hamstring Ukraine's military, deliberately to stop Ukraine defending its territory in this war against Russia after Russia invaded them. So, not to get too simple here, but Mr. Musk is American. He's an American citizen. And it is the explicit, out loud, not at all hidden, totally overt, totally emphatic policy of the United States government to support Ukraine in its war against Russia after Russia invaded them.
But it's not Musk's responsibility to get involved in it. I wouldn't want to be involved in starting a nuclear war, World War III. I don't blame him. He might be a U.S. citizen, but that's what he is, a citizen. He don't want to be involved in the world ending. Can't blame him at all.
We provide Ukraine, our ally, lots of military aid and training and intelligence and all sorts of other assistance. They are our ally in that war. But there's this one American private citizen who is intervening to try to stop Ukraine from winning the war, to try to stop Ukraine from defending itself against this Russian invasion.
He's not trying to stop Ukraine from winning the war. He's trying to help them win the war. He doesn't want to be involved in a nuclear war.
Trying to stop it, and in fact stopping it, by turning their communication lines on and off at will as he sees fit, or as someone sees fit. Because here's the crucial thing. In Mr. Isaacson's new book, and in Mr.
Okay, so she's wrong on that. The U.S. government actually, she's saying he's an American and he should be helping our allies, and Ukraine's our ally and we should be doing everything that we can for them, and that is absolutely not true. And it hasn't been true throughout this war. The U.S. government has actually been measured on what Ukraine is allowed to do. In fact, here's a Washington Post article. At U.S. behest, Ukraine held off anniversary attacks on Russia, saying that Kiev's head of military intelligence planned bold strikes deep behind enemy lines that unnerved officials in Washington. And they essentially said, we told them, we're not wanting you to do that. And that was just recently, saying that back in Washington, officials were secretly monitoring the Ukrainians' plans. The White House had long worried that attacks inside Russia could provoke an aggressive response from the Kremlin. So saying on February 22nd, 2 days before the anniversary, the CIA circulated a new classified report. The HUR had agreed at Washington's request to postpone strikes on Moscow. The document's part of a trove of classified information allegedly leaked on a gaming server by a 21-year-old member of the National Guard don't explain precisely who interceded and why the Ukrainians agreed to stand down. But they offer a specific example of a broader tension that has characterized much of the war. Ukraine, eager to bring the fight to Russia's home turf, is sometimes restrained by the United States, which has tried to avoid escalating the conflict into a direct fight between U.S. and Russian forces. So I don't know where Jake Tapper or Rachel Maddow have been. Clearly not reporting actual news, because if they were, then they would have known this, that actually the U.S.'s policy has been to not allow Ukraine to attack Russia, using American weapons. Guess what Starlink is? An American weapon in a way, certainly an American company. Elizabeth Warren, however, you didn't see that one coming, right? Now she's also a warmonger, it turns out. She's going after Musk as well. She's recently said, quote, "The Congress needs to investigate what's happened here and whether we have adequate tools to make sure foreign policy is conducted by the government and not by one billionaire." What the hell is she talking about?
Right.
It would have been more of him conducting foreign policy if he said to Ukraine, okay, I'll turn it back on so you can go ahead and attack Russia. Go ahead. I'm going to let you use my American-made weaponry, technology, for you to go and attack Russia. That would have been a billionaire going and making U.S. foreign policy decisions without the consultation of the U.S. military. That's what that would have been. Not, hey, no, I'm not going to let you use my weapons. But yeah, sure, go ahead and use my tech. Go ahead, by all means. But, look, a lot of people have been going after Musk for a while, Elizabeth Warren in particular. She's really hated the guy and really been going after him. But we've got, at this point, Elon Musk is facing DOJ civil rights division. They're investigating SpaceX for not hiring refugees. You've also got the DOJ and the SEC investigating Tesla over Musk's secret glass house project. City of San Francisco is also investigating Musk for his big X sign on the building that they said was against the rules. And by the way, Elon Musk, so I had to look this up because I didn't know about this glass house project, but apparently this is according to Architectural Digest. It's described internally as a house for Musk. One rendering showed a striking glass building resembling Manhattan's Fifth Avenue Apple store, complete with bedrooms, bathrooms, and a kitchen. And another iteration shows a twisted hexagon on a waterfront land with the Tesla factory in the background. So it's like a glass house, and apparently the SEC is investigating him for this. So You know, they're going after him for anything and everything, including how dare he not start nuclear war with Russia? What was
Right.
this eccentric billionaire thinking? What a dick, right? Like, why didn't he just let us have war with Russia? Okay, so this is what Elon Musk actually had to say about it. Here he is at the All In Podcast Summit. I believe this was just last night. This is what he had to say about this expert and about his refusal to turn on Starlink for Ukraine to attack Russia.
But at the time this happened, the region around Crimea was actually turned off. Now, the reason it was turned off was, actually originally was because the United States has sanctions against Russia, and we're not allowed to actually, and that includes Crimea in the sanctions, and we're not allowed to actually turn on connectivity to a sanctioned country without explicit government approval, which we did not have from the U.S. government. So, so basically, Ukraine didn't give us any advance warning or heads up or anything. But we just got the sort of urgent calls from the Ukrainian government saying that we needed to turn on Crimea. It's like in the middle of the night, basically. And we're like, "What are you talking about? You know,
You up?
What's it for?" You know, and then, you know, we basically figured out that this was kind of like a Pearl Harbor type attack on Sebastopol, on the Russian fleet in Sebastopol. So they're really asking us to really proactively take part in a major act of war.
Right.
You know, well, we certainly have huge support for the Ukrainian government. The Ukrainian government is not in charge of U.S. People or companies. That's not how it works.
And Elon, if I could just...
But I should say that, you know, although I'm not President Biden's biggest fan, if I had received a presidential directive to turn it on, I would have done so, because I do regard the president as the chief executive officer of the country. Whether I want that person to be the president or not, I still respect the office. And so, if I gotten a request from the president type of thing, from the American president, to be clear, then I would have turned it on. You know, so but no such request came through.
That's a really interesting point. And what Chamath is referring to is you're now being attacked. I saw there was Jake Tapper the other day on CNN interviewing our Secretary of State. He was all lathered up, basically attacking you for this. David.
I mean, to his credit, Secretary Blinken was actually quite supportive, despite the absurd, accusations and leading questions of Jake Tapper on CNN.
Yeah, he didn't take the bait, to his credit.
To Secretary Blinken in this regard for not taking the bait at all.
Yeah. Well, to me, this is an example of no good deed goes unpunished. Because if you had never given...
I hope some good deeds that go unpunished.
So it may not be long-lived, the U.S.'s stance on allowing Ukraine to attack Russia. We just got word also from Reuters, this came out yesterday or today, that the Biden administration is close to approving the shipment of longer-range missiles packed with cluster bombs to Ukraine, giving Kiev the ability to cause significant damage deeper within Russian-occupied territory. Curious the timing of this, if this is because of the whole debacle with Elon Musk and a lot of the liberal news media and establishment inside of Washington saying, oh my gosh, how dare this eccentric billionaire prevent Ukraine from attacking Russia? We need to be letting him do this. And so maybe the atmosphere is shifting and maybe the narrative is shifting. I hope not. Maybe the outlook is shifting and it's like, you know what? Yeah, let's just let them go for it. Let's just let them go ahead and attack Russia. So now there is this mulling around inside the Biden administration that they are apparently going to be approving this shipment of cluster munitions, which are, by the way, extremely controversial. We talked about these cluster munitions a while back when they were giving them, these are cluster bombs. They release a large number of bomblets over a wide area. They continue to pose a deadly risk long after the fighting has ended. And they're apparently going to be sending now they were using these in Ukraine, and the Biden administration sent them cluster munitions for Ukraine, but it would basically contaminate the soil inside of Ukraine. Well, now these long-range cluster munitions would contaminate the soil inside of Russia, and apparently they're really close to approving those. So maybe things are shifting, and as things get more desperate for Ukraine, perhaps the U.S. is willing to say, okay, go ahead and we'll let you start attacking inside of Russia with weapons we give you. I don't know how much this whole Elon Musk Starlink Gate debacle had to do with those decisions, but pretty interesting development. Another thing that happened, maybe it wasn't the Elon Musk debacle as to why they're deciding to give these long-range munitions to Ukraine. Maybe it's just Zelensky threatening terrorism on Europe if he doesn't get what he wants. You won't believe this article. This came out from The Economist. This was just yesterday. Donald Trump will never support Putin, says Volodymyr Zelensky. This is the article, but inside the article, it says, quote, curtailing aid to Ukraine will only prolong the war, Mr. Zelensky argues, and it would create risks for the West in its own backyard. There is no way of predicting how the millions of Ukrainian refugees in European countries would react to their country being abandoned. Ukrainians have generally behaved well and are very grateful to those who sheltered them. They will not forget that generosity, but it would not be a good story for Europe if it were to drive these people into a corner. What?
Well, sounds like he's threatening the West. Help us or we're going to hurt you.
What? So he's saying, nice little European country you've got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. You don't want to piss off all the Ukrainians that you've been giving shelter to, all the Ukrainian refugees that you so kindly and generously opened up to them. And, if you don't help their country out, they're going to be pissed. And you know what happens when they're pissed? Don't know. So maybe you should be providing some long-range weapons and more help to Ukraine, because if you don't, there's an or else attached to this. This is unbelievable that this is Zelensky's tone when it comes to the war. Help us out or else. I mean, the guy has been definitely willing to do and say a lot of things in order to keep the war going and not negotiate peace with Russia. So I suppose now threatening the West and saying do it or else is, or else I'm going to sick my Ukrainian refugees on you. Wow. Okay. Interesting. All right, guys, that is it for tonight's show. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you being here. We will be back again tomorrow night with another great show, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you have any questions, comments, guest suggestions, topic suggestions, anything, I love hearing from you. Email me, kim@kimiverson.com. Otherwise, guys, we will see you tomorrow night with another great show. Have a good one. Good night. Bye-bye.